Good evening, everybody. Sorry, I have a big voice. My name is Heather Kellstrom, and I am Director of Instructional Technology for Saline Schools. We welcome you this evening to our cyber safety panel presentation. We have a lot packed in the night for you. Like you, we think these students need to work on some cyber safety issues. We value them just like you value them as children. And tonight we put together a big panel to talk about education and awareness to what cyber safety is all about. This panel is going to work this evening to give you some definitions about cyber safety, talk about cyberbullying, online predators, and some sexting, and then give you a few hints of what you can do as parents. So before we get started, I thought I would introduce this fine panel here. We have Mr. Scott Graydon, our Superintendent of Schools. He is our technologically savvy superintendent. Next, we have two individuals from Washtenaw Area Council for Children. They are internet safety facilitators, and they service all of Washtenaw County. It's a federally funded program, and we're lucky to have them in our facilities working with our students. Their names are Robin Batten and Julie Peria. Close, something like, I always mess it up. Next, we have Don Lupi. Can you give him a wave, Don? We're moving down the line. We just want to make sure they know. Don is a detective with the Saline Police Department. Next to him is Richie Coleman. Richie is the Public Safety Community Coordinator for Pittsfield Township. We are expecting one guest in a little bit from the Sheriff's Office. And then on the end, these two faces should look quite familiar. Mrs. Chuckleheads, Assistant Principal here at Saline Middle School, and Mr. Raft, Principal of Saline Middle School. We have a few people in the audience that we want to do a little shout out to. So any Saline Schools employees out in the audience, can you please stand for a minute? Sorry, we're bringing attention to all of you. We thank you for coming tonight. Each of them play important roles in our district, and we think it's great that they've come on their own time to hear about cyber safety as well. And then when you checked in, we had some 8th grade web students, and they were expensive. It cost Mr. Raff a couple pizzas to get them in, but they came to check you in tonight and pass out some materials. Just do a little housekeeping. Did everybody get a package of materials? In it, we have some resources for you, some phone numbers, and then there's a green sheet in there. This green sheet's real important to fill out. We hope that you fill it out tonight. It is a survey. Our two gals from the Washtenaw Area Council for Children. It is a federally funded program, and their funding is coming to a close. And we can't imagine, as I'm sure other school districts, not having this resource available to us in the future. So we hope you take the time to fill out that survey and drop it off when you leave, because that's what gets reported back. So before I hand the microphone over to Mr. Graydon, I want you to take a look at the slide. When you see the slide, what do you think of? Shout it out tonight. Don't make me call on you now. What do you think of?
Summer vacation.
Summer vacation. What else? What do you think of? It's peaceful, restful. There are footprints. Now, it makes me think, I just came from Myrtle Beach a few weeks ago, so it makes me think of being in Myrtle Beach. These footprints, they're beautiful, yet when the high tide comes, they go away. They're gone. They're not to be made again. In technology, we have footprints, and the footprints that we use are digital footprints, and we all make them every day. These footprints show where we've been, where we are today, what we're up to, and most likely these footprints can even forecast where we're gonna go before we make those clicks. I've heard this a couple of times. There's a trend with our younger population right now that are graduating, that they're having to change their last name at a record rate. And so you think, a namesake, why would they have to change their namesake? And it's their digital footprints that are getting them in trouble. When kids go to college, they get Googled by the college board. When they get their first job or their summer job, they're getting Googled. And, you know, when you Google something, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly. So tonight is about, I want you to think about those digital footprints that you make and that probably your students make that you are unaware of. And our goal through this education and awareness training that we're starting today, we want you to think about how we can make good footprints that show academic growth, that show 21st century skills they're learning here, that show a portfolio of skills that make them college ready and employable. And between all of us, we think it's going to take a village. We want to make sure those footprints are really strong, that they're Googleable. So I want you to think about that as we move on tonight.
Thank you. As Ms. Kallstrom said, my name is Scott Grayton. I'm the superintendent for Saline area schools. First, I would like to thank Ms. Kallstrom and the panel and those of you who've come tonight to learn a little bit more, raise your own awareness of some of the issues that we're facing as a school district, we're facing as a community. One of the things we pride ourselves on here at Saline is our ability to effectively integrate technology. In this past September, the school board adopted a 4-goal strategic framework. And the second goal was the goal that all students will acquire the essential skills to be learners and leaders in a ever-changing 21st century global society. And in making that framework decision and talking about that at the board level, we understand that the access to information has fundamentally shifted over the last several years, and that ultimately the way students can learn and our opportunities for student learning have really changed and shifted. It's been a wonderful opportunity, but it has come with a variety of challenges for us as a district, for us, frankly, as a society. And so we've partnered with an organization to try and look at this Stop, Think, and Connect program as a framework for us as a community to identify how we're going to address this issue. The idea that we're not going to access these resources, or that our students are not going to access these resources, that's not something that we can deal with. It's not something that we would want for our community. However, once we take that step and say we're going to do it, we really need to be thoughtful about it. So one, the Stop is about raising awareness. We're here tonight. I appreciate that. I think it's a start for us to really say we're going to be aware as a community that when we go online as students, when we go online as adults, there are certain things we need to consider. The next thing is think. When we think about it, it's about what are the strategies we're going to use? What are the things that we can do to make sure, or to the greatest extent, ensure that we're going to be safe, we're going to make those good decisions, and we're aware of what we're going to be doing on there. Again, using that think portion as a strategy, and ultimately to connect. Not to say we're not going to do it. Turning off, from our standpoint, turning off the access to technology, blocking every site that could possibly come with an issue for us. We've recently changed some of our policy at the high school around the use of cell phone. We understand we cannot simply just shut the door on it, act like it doesn't exist, and it's not going to be there. We need to be ready to connect as a district or as a community, but we need to first think about that and have a strategy, and even before that, we need to be aware of what's going on. So that's where the Stop, Think, and Connect really framework comes from. We can't stop. We can't not connect. So now we need to start there. So, Heather?
Just to piggyback off what Scott talked a little bit about, as a district, we have been doing things with cyber safety. You all sign this with your children in the fall, the acceptable use policy. Those are kind of the rules and regulations of participating on the network. We have a group of media specialists that run training. We partner with the October's National Cyber Safety Awareness Month. When our classroom teachers kick off tech projects, sometimes you'll see notes that come home with specific areas we're going to be into. We brought in the Washington Area Council for Children to run extensive programming here at the middle school. We see this as an area of opportunity is probably the best way to say. They're at that kind of viable age when we need to help shape them a little bit more. Next year at 9th grade, we are going to require every 9th grader, they are required to take health class. We are building in a cyber safety unit in there. And late in the summer, we will be training our teachers. They'll all go through some type of little internal certification. So cyber safety is very important to us. Before I turn the floor over to our next two presenters, I did want to get you a little ready for a minute. So parenting in the digital age. It is interesting now. In the last 10 years, it's really changed a lot. To some parents, and we hear this often, it's just foreign territory. You know, as parents, we're probably very good at the emailing part. Some of us are good at the texting, some aren't. And then, you know, when they text, they speak such a foreign language. I looked at my daughter's phone, it was going off tonight, and I read the text, and I'm just, what does all this mean? You know, why are you trying to trick me here? How come I can't figure out what this says? So it's very foreign to us as parents. They really do speak a different language. We still use phones. They wouldn't, well, my daughter says, I am not using the phone. That is just an archaic way to communicate. So they kind of bypass that. Not knowing the risk levels, and I think when you see tonight our next two presenters, it's shocking to see what's out there. Just like Mr. Graydon said, we're not gonna not do it. You know, these are 21st century skills. We need to get them out there, but we need to empower them to make better choices. And then, you know, there are resources out there, and they're not really tied together that well, but we've got something to share with you at the end of the night that shows Washtenaw County is coming together as a community to provide some good cyber safety training. And then, you know, it's hard, back to that parenting. How do you grant, you know, the independence? How do you, you know, establish those boundaries? How do we grow our children? And that's just really what it comes down to it. So how do we connect? A lot of different ways. You know, we go through emails and blogs, and we've got these smartphones that really are just computers, and gaming systems are one of those areas we really need to think twice about. It's fine to have them, but they connect right up to the internet too. So when you think a computer's bad or you think a cell phone's bad, you always need to remember the gaming system sits right up there. Overall, take a look at some of these facts. 94% of the teens are online, 54% text daily, and that's probably a little low. 80% of teens have a gaming console. 51% of teens have portable devices, so when they're out of your space, you know, they're out with their technology for the day. And then this is just staggering to me. Kids 8 to 18 spend more time with media, 53 hours a week, than they do at school or at home with their parents. That is just mind-boggling. So there are benefits to the technology. You know, you get friendships. From the educational perspective, you know, the world is based, it's wired, it's global, so we can't imagine not having technology accessible to our students every day. You know, it's easy to communicate with, you can share your interests, you can tell people what you're up to. So it does have some benefits, but it also has some dangers. There are some areas that get kids into trouble. Cyberbullying does exist. There is some exploitation and pornography out there. There's some privacy, and there are always predators lurking. Again, it goes back to the education and awareness is what we're really looking to bring out. There's some other negative uses. I'm not going to go through them, but you can kind of take a look. I mean, there's lots that you can do. So what I want to do is focus on the building awareness part. And Robin and Julie are going to share this second set of presentation. And it's a large presentation. It's going to go over cyberbullying. It's going to go over sexting. It's going to go over online predators. And it's going to give you some hints as parents what you might consider tonight. Remember, our goal is good digital footprints. So think about that as we go forward.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Julie Padilla. I am an Internet Safety Facilitator for Washtenaw Area Council for Children, which, if you're not familiar, is a nonprofit organization here in the community that's dedicated to preventing child abuse and neglect through educational programming. And the Internet Safety Program is just one of the programs that we offer. What we do as part of the Internet Safety Program is talk to teenagers, talk to parents, and facilitate peer mentor groups, where we try to teach young people how to be good role models within their schools around internet safety. And that's something that we are talking about doing here at the middle school in the fall. So that's something to look forward to. So I'm going to jump right in. What is cyberbullying? Well, we've all heard about it. You hear about it on the news. Every time you turn on the TV or open a newspaper, there's something about cyberbullying. And it's a huge problem right now. The definition is basically whenever someone is harassed, tormented, humiliated, or embarrassed using some kind of digital technology, be it Facebook, FormSpring, text messaging, whatever. The biggest difference between bullying, the traditional, what we all grew up with type of bullying, and cyberbullying, the biggest difference is the size of the audience. If I am walking across the stage and Heather reaches out and trips me and I fall, well, everybody in the room saw it happen. Ha ha, really funny, Julie fell down. However, since it is being recorded, that got uploaded to YouTube, suddenly there are millions of people out there who can see exactly what happened and can comment on it. And I may not even be aware that the video has been uploaded to YouTube. It can happen late at night, I've already gone to bed, I get up the next morning, go to school or go to work, and everyone's laughing and pointing at me and making fun of me, and I don't even know why. Well, they've all seen the YouTube video. That's the biggest difference. The audience with the World Wide Web is obviously enormous. The internet never shuts down, it's 24/7, it can happen anytime, anywhere. With the smartphones, people can be, even sitting in a classroom. I'm sure they shouldn't have their phone in a classroom, but I'm sure some of them do. They could be posting messages even while they're sitting in the classroom, harassing one of their classmates. Sometimes the victim isn't even a participant. We constantly are hearing things about fake Facebook profiles. A young lady came into our office who is, very conservative, upbringing, very religious, very nice young lady, good student, everything. She found out someone at we assume at her school, had created a fake Facebook profile in her name using her picture, but making her out to be completely the opposite of what she really was. Think of the harm that can do to that young lady's reputation, to her self-esteem. Colleges are looking at these kinds of things. So if they Googled her name and they found that profile as opposed to her real profile, or who knows, she may not have even had a real profile, but nonetheless, that's the impression that they're going to get. So that's just another way that cyberbullying is taking over. The most common types of cyberbullying, this is according to a study that MTV did, believe it or not, with the Associated Press. MTV is doing wonderful things right now as far as addressing the problems of sexting and cyberbullying among teens. They have a website called athinline.org. I highly recommend that you go home and take a look at it. I believe there's a link to it on one of the handouts in your packet. But they're doing some really great things, having teenagers talking to teenagers about these issues, but it's great information for parents to have as well. Anyway, this came from a study they did in tandem with the Associated Press. And they said that the most common types of cyberbullying are spreading lies, which is pretty self-explanatory, violation of trust. Your friend may have told you a secret and you posted it on the internet for all to see. And just general digital disrespect, saying mean things about other people. Those are the main types of cyberbullying that are happening right now. And cyberbullying can take all kinds of different forms. It could be a text message, it could be an embarrassing picture, it could even be a sexting type picture, which obviously would be kind of embarrassing if it got out. It's happening on the gaming consoles. When we ask the students, how many of you have ever heard any bullying going on when you're playing Xbox Live? And you'd be amazed at the number of hands that shoot up. And a lot of that bullying that's taking place is racially motivated. Kids are stealing each other's passwords, creating the fake Facebook profiles and other social networking profiles. They're creating hot or not type websites. They're going on this site called FormSpring. How many of you have ever heard of FormSpring? A few parents have. It's basically a site that I guess had good intentions. They wanted it to be a place where people could anonymously ask and answer questions. And I'm sure that, they had valid reasons for doing that, but what's happened is kids are going on there and anonymously asking questions and bullying each other. I guarantee your kids have heard of this website. Sending spyware and hacking programs, and just going into social networking sites and creating fan groups. There's the I hate my teacher group, or I hate so-and-so group. All kinds of things that the kids can do to cyberbully. Why is it happening? Well, as Ms. Kellstrom was saying, this is the normal place for kids to communicate now. They don't talk on the phone. Yeah, they hang out at the mall, but not nearly the way that we did when we were that age. They're all online, they're all connected. This is the way they communicate. It's also a heck of a lot easier to say something mean and nasty about someone if you don't have to look at their face and see how they react. When you're hiding behind a computer screen or behind a cell phone, you feel invincible. You think it's anonymous. You don't even think about how the person on the receiving end might feel. Sometimes people just think it's fun or funny, particularly when it comes to the embarrassing pictures. But I guarantee there are kids out there who've had some kind of an embarrassing picture posted of them, and they didn't think it was funny at all. Sometimes it's simply peer pressure. You may not have anything against, Julie from your math class, but your friends, for some reason, have a thing against her, and so you kind of get roped into being one of the bullies. And sometimes it's inadvertent. You may not even think that what you're saying could be construed as bullying, but it can. Obviously, there are a lot of consequences to all of this. For the person being bullied, embarrassment, humiliation, sadness, alienation, loneliness, the list goes on and on. The worst case scenario, of course, is those that make the news, those that commit suicide. I'll talk about a couple of those cases in a moment. As far as the bully goes, the bullies can exhibit some of those same consequences. They too can feel alienated. They may feel lonely, like they can't tell anybody what's going on. They can get into trouble at school, wind up in detention, getting suspended, and can even wind up in trouble with the law. How many have heard the case of Meier? She was a young lady who, she was 13 years old, lived in Missouri, and she was on MySpace back when everybody was using MySpace. She met this young man named Josh, who said he was 16, he was new to town, being homeschooled, didn't really know anyone, and was using MySpace to try and make friends. So they became friends, and they would talk almost every day. And then one day, Megan came home to find this message from Josh saying that he'd heard some horrible things about her and he couldn't be associated with her anymore. Well, obviously she's a little puzzled by all of this, because if he's new to town and being homeschooled and he doesn't know anyone, well, how's he hearing bad things? So she started asking about it, and the conversation just got worse. Finally, he said to her, the world would just be better off without you. Her mom came home while all of this was going on, tried to talk Megan down because she was so upset. Megan said, "Mom, you're supposed to be on my side. You don't understand." Storms off to her room. Her mom looks at the computer and sees the last message that Megan had typed to Josh read, "You're a boy worth dying for." So Megan's mom goes to her room, but it was too late. Megan had hanged herself in her closet at the age of 13. When they started investigating who this Josh person was and why he'd been so mean to Megan, here's what they found. Lori Drew lived down the street from the Meier family. They were family friends. And her daughter had gotten into an argument with Megan about a boy. Lori wanted to know what Megan was saying about her daughter online, so she created this fake profile. And she even recruited some kids. There were a few people who were actually in on it, but Lori was the main instigator. And they essentially created this fake profile to gain Megan's trust and find out what she was saying. Mrs. Drew, because there weren't cyberbullying laws in place in the state of Missouri at this time, got probation, parenting classes, essentially a slap on the wrist for what she did. She became a pariah in her town and ended up having to leave town, had to take her whole family and leave because everyone knew what had happened. This is another more recent case. Has anyone heard of Phoebe Prince? A few hands. She was 15 years old and her family moved to Massachusetts from Ireland. And when you change schools, especially when you're moving to a new country, you're trying to make friends, trying to fit in. She started hanging out with a couple of the popular boys at her school, and the mean girls got jealous. They started bullying her, harassing her, essentially using every means they had at their disposal. They did it at school, walking home, they went online, they used FormSpring, Facebook, everything. One day, Phoebe had tried to get help. She talked to her school, her parents talked to her school, and they kept saying, well, there's nothing we can do, there's nothing we can do. Phoebe's friends even tried to help her, you're a good person, don't let this stuff get to you, that kind of thing, but Phoebe was just beyond consoling. And the last straw came when she was walking home from school one day, and they drove up behind her and threw a can of Red Bull and hit her in the head. She went home and hanged herself in the stairwell of her building, and her younger sister found her. What makes the story even sadder is that even after she died, her bullies didn't stop. They posted things online like, I'm glad she's dead. I helped kill Phoebe Prince. They even showed up at the wake and stood there and laughed at her family grieving. So, because it was so obvious who the culprits were that had made her life so miserable, they were able to press charges. These 6 teenagers two of them are on trial now, the other 4 are awaiting trial on charges of assault, harassment, statutory rape, stalking, there's a whole list. So we're all kind of anxiously waiting to see what kind of punishment they actually get. The one good thing that did come out of all of this is the state of Massachusetts has enacted a stricter cyberbullying law. So here are some warning signs to kind of keep an eye out for with your kids. They're actually kind of generic. Generally, if you see any of these warning signs from your kids, it doesn't necessarily mean cyberbullying, it could mean any number of things, but they're all things to keep an eye out for, nonetheless. For the victim, if they suddenly don't want anything to do with the computer or a cell phone, if they act all anxious when they get an email or when they get a text message, they don't want to talk about the computer at all, they are angry, depressed, they may withdraw from their usual activities. Maybe they were big into hockey or they played on a club soccer team and suddenly they want nothing to do with it, just out of the blue. That's something to keep an eye out for. Their grades might drop. They may start faking illness to get out of going to class. And generally, they just don't want anything to do with the computer at all. As far as a bully goes, we've all been at work and been working away on our solitaire game and had the boss walk in and you switch screens really fast. Kids will do the same thing. They don't want you to see what they're doing online. A bully will be constantly using the computer or using the phone. Can't get it away from them. And I know that's the way kids are now anyway, but this is even more pronounced. They get really upset when they can't use the computer. They're laughing a lot inappropriately. We all laugh when we see the funny videos, but this is laughing a lot and may sound even kind of menacing. Again, they don't want to talk about the computer. They may have multiple accounts. We talked to one young man who had 14 email accounts. He couldn't even remember the passwords to all of them. Who knows why he needed that many, but that's what he told us. And they too might have falling out with friends and lose interest in their normal activities. Here are some statistics around cyberbullying. About 42% of kids have been bullied online, and 1 in 4 have had it happen more than once. 53% of kids admit that they have said something mean or hurtful to someone else online, and more than 1 in 3 have done it more than once. And this is the one that bothers us the most. 58% have not told their parents or another adult about something mean or harmful that was said to them online. When we talk to kids, we tell them absolutely, even if you think your parents are going to overreact or underreact, If you don't think they're going to be able to help you with this problem, find an adult who you think can help you. Could be a teacher, could be a counselor, could be anyone, but talk to an adult. Why don't kids report? Well, like I just said, they may think their parents will over or underreact. They think the bullying will get worse. They're embarrassed about it. They don't want to be blamed. They may, some people may say, well, what did you do to bring that on? It's not the kid's fault. Don't blame the kids. And they don't want their computer or their technology to be taken away. We don't advocate banning kids from using technology. We know it's a part of daily life. What we do advocate is making sure that there are boundaries set and that the kids know what is acceptable and unacceptable. And Robin's going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. If the child does find themselves being bullied, the first thing they should do is tell the bully to stop. Stop, block, and tell. Tell the bully to stop, block them from contacting you, tell a trusted adult. They need to save all the evidence. You never know. If it escalates, if there are threats of bodily harm, you're going to need evidence that all of this was taking place. That could mean printing out things that were said on an email. It could mean saving text messages. However you need to do it, saving the evidence is critical. Take a break, walk away, particularly with the gaming system. We've heard a lot of kids say they'll just, put it down for a few minutes or mute the person who's bothering them. It's a way of them taking a break and getting away from the stress of it. We also tell kids, don't do the back and forth thing. Don't try and respond and beat down on the bully verbally. Because bullying is all about power. And what the bully is trying to do is get a reaction out of their victim. And if they keep responding, they're playing right into the bully's hands. That's what the bully wants. They want to know they're getting to their victim. We also like to tell kids not to forward these things because they spread like wildfire and it just contributes to the problem. It doesn't help anything. If there is a threat of physical violence, absolutely contact law enforcement. We've been told that, sometimes law enforcement caseloads are just so overwhelming that they can't address every single cyberbullying complaint. But absolutely, if there's some kind of a threat of bodily harm, you need to contact law enforcement. That brings us to sexting. Sexting is using technology to send any kind of a sexually explicit video, picture, or language. This is the ultimate example of what can happen, what can go wrong, basically. Philip Albert was 18 years old, his girlfriend was 16. They had been dating for about 2.5 years, really trusted each other, really loved each other. She sent him one of those pictures. Well, one night, she broke up with him. They had a big fight, and she ended it. In a fit of complete stupidity, which he readily admits, he hit send to his entire cell phone contact list and sent that picture out. That included his parents, her parents, friends, family, everybody got this picture. Her parents pressed charges. When they realized exactly what the punishment was going to be for him, they tried to withdraw the charges, thinking, they had scared him badly enough and they didn't want it to go any further, but the state of Florida said no. He was convicted of distributing child pornography and was sentenced to 5 years probation and 25 years on the sex offender registry. He was kicked out of college. He is obviously restricted as to where he can live. He has a younger sister. He can't pick her up at school. He can't attend any of her school activities because he can't get within 1,000 feet of his school. Every time he applies for a job or moves, has to report in, has to admit he's been convicted of a felony and explain the situation. Every year that he's on the registry, he has to pay $1,500 for classes that are associated with being a sex offender. He'll be 43 years old when he gets off this list. He has been all over the media because he is working to try and get the penalties for sexting reduced in the state of Florida. And it was recently up for a vote. They decided not to reduce it. I was at a conference recently and spoke with a state senator in Michigan who said, nope, they're not going to be reducing it in the state of Michigan either. So these are the kinds of things that we absolutely need to get through to the kids. It's child pornography, plain and simple. And they can wind up on the sex offender registry as well as in prison. This is another young lady who was involved in a sexting case who was all over the news a couple of years ago. She sent a picture to her boyfriend. They were in love. She thought she could trust him. They broke up. He sent the picture out to the entire school. Jessie was one of those kids who tried to see the good in the experience, and she started speaking out about sexting and trying to explain to other kids why it was such a bad idea and why they shouldn't do it. But ultimately, the bullying got to her. Even though she was doing all of this public speaking and trying to be a good role model, the kids at school were still calling her all kinds of horrible names and made her life unbearable, and she finally committed suicide. So why are kids sexting? Well, about half of the girls who have done it say pressure from a guy, asking them to send these kinds of pictures. 66% of teen girls and 60% of teen boys say they do it because it's fun or flirty. 44% say they did it in response to content that they had received, the whole I'll show you mine if you show me yours kind of situation. And about 40% of teenage girls say they did it as a joke. So we tell people if someone, especially teenagers, if someone asks you or pressures you to send this kind of picture, just say no. You have the right to say no. We have girls asking us all the time, oh, but he's really cute, I really like him. We were like, yeah, but cute fades. In 5 years, he's not gonna be so cute. In 2 years, he's not gonna be so cute. And that picture's gonna be floating around out there. Once you hit send, you lose control of it. It can go anywhere, anytime, and it probably will. People can print, save, and send anything that you post, text, or type. We need to make sure kids are aware of that. And we also tell kids, if someone sends you one of these inappropriate pictures, tell them to stop, first and foremost, delete it from their phone, tell an adult what happened. The officers are going to explain what the laws are pertaining to this, and let me tell you, it's not pretty. You do not want to get your kid caught up in a mess like that. So that brings us to online predators, and my coworker Robin is going to take over from here.
All right, thank you, Julie. Julie shared a lot of information with you all, a lot of heavy information. So I'm going to go on with online predators. So they give us a definition that an online predator is an adult internet user, and he targets vulnerable children for sexual reasons. But actually, we actually share with the young people that they're not just adults. They're young people that are in their age group, and I actually have a slide here, hopefully, that will demonstrate that. An online predator can be anyone that they know, male or female, young or old. When we ask the young people what they think a predator looks like, they always say the creepy old dude, and that's typical. But actually, we try to let them know that they can be anyone. And they're looking for young people online. So, how do online predators operate? They target kids that are lonely, want attention, and that are angry with their parents. They try to separate you from your parents. They also target kids who want to appear grown up and want to be treated as such. So they're building their trust, who are questioning their sexual identity, and they try to relate to the things that kids are saying online. We read a couple cases of a young lady who was given our economic situation, a lot of people are losing their homes, and she's talking about these things online, not realizing that she's talking to a predator. And so the predator tells her, well, if you give me what I want, I will pay off your parents' household. So this young lady was actually tempted to go with this guy, have sex with him so she can have her home paid for. So that's how they operate. They're seeking out kids who are venting, who they feel they can control in some sort of way. They also will send sexually explicit images to young people, and that is to get them comfortable with talking about the conversation and get them comfortable with the conversation of talking about sex. Make them feel like, you know, it's okay to talk about sex with them. And also they will use it as a form of blackmail. Once they've got them comfortable, they tell them, you know, we talked about this, you showed me this picture, and now I can tell your parents, if you don't do this for me, I'm gonna tell your parents. So they really just sort of bully the kids, in a sense, into getting what they want out of them. So this is how online predators versus real-world predators. Usually, face-to-face predators or real-world predators, they target kids that they know. We hear that they're the babysitter or a coach or someone that the child knows, a neighbor, and someone that the family trusts. But for an online predator, they are looking for kids that they do not know. So they're out there just lurking. It's the same, we always tell the kids, wherever kids are, predators are. Let's see, and they more likely they live in the same geographic area. So this is Christina Long. Christina Long is the first case that they actually identified of a young lady that was a victim of an online predator. Christina Long sort of had a double identity. She led a double life. She was the typical young teenage girl. She was a Catholic school girl on the cheer team, got good grades, but what she did not know, what her parents did not know, is that Christina was online meeting guys for sex. And she met up with one guy, ended up in his car, and he choked her in the backseat of his car. And it was actually on her birthday. So this is the first documented case that we have of a young lady being a victim of an online predator. This is Danny. We often show this Danny's profile because Danny is on MySpace, which we all know that MySpace doesn't exist anymore. But Danny is on MySpace, and he's sharing things just like everyone else. He's talking about how he likes plants, poetry, and just posting a lot of nice things, watching movies by the fire. Danny goes on to say that he loves his country, you know, he wants to date seriously, but this is what Danny does not share. This is his other profile with the state of Arizona Sex Offender Registry. And Danny he was arrested for luring a minor for sexual exploitation. And Danny tells a few lies on his profile the same way that predators do. He tells on his profile that he's about 25, he's actually 32 in his real profile. So Danny is one of the cases that we show that's to demonstrate that predators are definitely on social networking sites. And this is Timothy Hammerstone. We show Timothy because there are a lot of boys that are on the Xbox Live. Julie talked to you about bullying going on the Xbox, and that is definitely happening, but what parents may not know is that there are a lot of sexual predators on the Xbox Live. And Timothy has 16 count of possession of child pornography for allegedly soliciting a 10-year-old boy for pictures through the Xbox. Now, when we show this picture to kids, the boys really just, you know, they're pretty shocked. And then we tell them that this guy actually worked at Disney World at the concession stand. That's another shock. So they're definitely on the Xbox Live. And also there was a female, we don't have her in our slides, she also solicited her son's friends by offering them Xbox. And this guy was actually doing you know how they gain the points when they play the games? He was offering them the points in order to be able to buy new games through the Xbox. This is Anthony Stencil. Anthony Stencil was 18 years old. He preyed upon boys in his school. He set up a fake profile, pretended to be a 16-year-old girl, you know, contacted all these guys in his school, and pretended he liked them. And then he started to ask them for pictures, sending sexting pictures. And in turn, from them sending sexting pictures, he blackmailed them sexually. And he was doing his dirty deed on school grounds, in the bathroom, in the library, and in other places around the school. And the way that they caught Anthony is that a bomb threat came from the computer. And from there, one of the boys heard what had happened, and he decided to come forward and tell what was going on with him and a few other boys in the school. Anthony is now serving 15 years in prison because of his crime. This is Pastor Bender. Pastor Bender was online soliciting parents, mothers, and their daughters. And his goal was to get the daughters, and he said that he was a teacher. He was going to teach them how to prepare for when their time is come for them to marry. Meaning he was going to teach them what to do sexually. And so he thought he was chatting with a mom and her 11-year-old daughter online. He was actually talking to an FBI agent. So he was, I think this was in the last year that this occurred. So here are some percentages. 54% of teens have communicated online with someone that they met in person. 30% of teens have talked about meeting someone in person through the internet. And then the 1% down here, that 100% of children molested by internet predators went willingly. So that's pretty frightening. So they tell us that approximately 25% of kids who have sexual encounters online do not tell their parents. So this is one of the websites that we found that, that young people are visiting, which is Omegle. It is a chat with a stranger website. If you log on it, immediately you're connected with a stranger. This is one of our coworkers. She just signed on. You know, we do this stuff at work. We don't want to connect it to us at home. So he said something about, he asked her if she wanted to talk some gay talk. And she said, well, not really. You know, and he was like, well, why not? She said, I'm straight. And, you know, he said, what difference does that make or something of that nature? And we just log off. But we did that just so we can see what Omegle does. And a lot of young people are using this website. This is another one, chat roulette. How many of you heard of chat roulette? Yeah, this guy, you see this girl in the corner is talking to the guy in the bra, and then you got the guy in the cat suit. A lot of young people are getting on chat roulette. They think it's very funny, but a lot of things are going on chat roulette. Supposedly they're trying to monitor it, and if something is going on, then you can report it, but we're not sure exactly how they're working this out. So, with all the things that we share, with the cyberbullying and sexting and the online predators that we need to be aware of that's going on as our young people are using technology to connect. We talked about the various ways, the gaming consoles, the computers, the cell phones. So we're trying to offer some tips. They're not necessary, you have to follow them. Everyone have rules in their household. I say basically the way that you raise your children as they're growing up, not to talk to strangers, don't take things from strangers, look both ways before you cross the street. You have rules for when they go to the mall. We said, they have rules for what time they have to come in, our curfews. The same rules can apply to using technology. So we say keep the computer in an open space. We know that a lot of kids have their laptops and they use them in their rooms. They have their iPods and they're in their rooms. They have their cell phones in their rooms. But I'm telling you, a lot of things are going on because they have the technology in their bedrooms. They're sexting, they're bullying, they're doing a whole lot of things. And the gaming consoles, you can keep them in an open area. Learn how to use the internet. Some parents don't know how to use the internet. We find that with a lot of grandparents who are raising their grandchildren. Review cell phone bills, the phone history. Check your browser, see what type of websites that your kids are visiting. I know for me, I do have parental control set on my computer with my children, and I have the age range set. And anytime they try to visit a website that's outside their age range, that's not appropriate for them, it's emailed to me to let me know what is going on. That's one way you can keep track of what's going on. And it can be a headache trying to keep track of those things, but it's worthwhile. Pop-up blockers, and YouTube is a big problem for parents. Recently, YouTube do have a safety mode. It's very easy to set. When you log on to YouTube, you just go down to the bottom and set the safety mode. And you can set it for your session or every session following. But the kicker is you have to set it on every single browser. So if you're doing Internet Explorer, if you're doing Google Chrome, it has to be set in every browser. And every user that's on the computer. Okay, and just really know where your children are going and try to know their passwords. They really hate to give out passwords, but please try to get your password and set the parental controls on the gaming console. Do not give the games to the kids before you set the parental controls, because if you do, they will try to set the parental controls and then say they don't remember the passcode. Then you won't be able to get into that. I had that to happen to me, and I just simply told them, okay, well, if you don't remember the passcode, then you can't play the game. Of course, you remember the passcode. Just basically communicating with your kids, talking about things that are going on online. Whenever things occur in the media, you hear these stories, and your kids are hearing the stories, those are those teachable moments. Talk to them about what's going on. When you hear that someone was cyberbullied or someone left with a predator, talk to your kids about that. You can friend your children on Facebook to keep track of what's going on, what their friends are saying. You can, just watch what they're saying online and try to talk to them about actually what they're putting out there. A lot of kids are using Facebook as a diary. They're putting too much personal information out there. Set clear expectations, code of conduct. Teach your children continuous dialogue with them whenever something's going on. Just talk to them. Even when they pull away, you still talk to them. Look for signs of change in their behaviors, especially for kids that are being bullied. You want to make sure that you're watching out if they're starting to display some sort of depression or withdrawal or frustration. You really want to pay attention to that. And it says up here, teach them how to take care of themselves online. Set social networking privacy settings. When they're on Facebook, they need to know how to set their privacy settings. Learn how to set their privacies where they can't be tagged in pictures. That's very important. Be careful of who they are friending, because they could be friending a predator or someone that doesn't represent what they represent. Tell an adult when they are in an uncomfortable situation. That is very important, that you build that type of trust with your kids so they're willing to come to you. As Julie said, a lot of kids are a little frightened to come to their parents. They're afraid that they're going to overreact or underreact. So we do tell them if they can't talk to their parents, to go tell a teacher or someone else that they trust. Recognize the difference between cute and creepy. They see a picture of a guy online, they want to friend him because they think they are cute. And don't make themselves stalk-worthy, just sharing too much information, personal and private information. And then talk about, other things that they can do, what-if situations. I believe that's it for me, so.
They did give a lot of good information, and I know some of the stories were just a little scary, but those stories, they're for the parents to remind us of how important it is to get back to those digital footprints, know what we like to know what our students are up to and your children. Now I want to turn it over to Mr. Raft and Mrs Chuckleheads. They live this every day with the students. I want them to share a little bit about their perspective of what's going on in a middle schooler's life. Mr. Raft?
Well, I get to share all the good news, because there is some good news out there. One is all this right here and all this, that's working, because the majority of what we're dealing with comes from our students when they report it to us. And so they're coming forward and they're speaking out and they're talking about what's going on within their classmates. And we really don't have a lot of students doing it, but there are some serious situations that happen on a weekly basis here. And actually all those situations they show in Florida and other cities, that's happened in the middle school. So it is happening, and it's not one person, it's not a certain type of kid. It's from all different facts of life. They're all good kids making some poor choices. But choices that are going to stick with them for a long time. And for example, I thought we'd get through this week without a situation, because it's a short week. Not that we've had a short week at all this year. But we had a young lady walked up, a cute little 6th grader. She goes, "Mr. Raft, is this sexting?" And she shoves the phone right in my face. I'm like, oh. I start to read it, and it is sexting. A young boy's asking her to send a naked picture. And I'm like, "Did you show your parents this?" And she said, "Not yet." And I said, "Well, are you gonna?" She goes, "Yes." And then we got into where we're going with it. But it happens weekly. It happens all the time here at the middle school. I'm sure it happens other places. So it's us as parents, and I'm a parent of a daughter, 2 daughters. We've got to be ready to know what's going on. And the Xbox thing, that's dangerous too. I mean, we've had that situation. The news you guys saw here a couple weeks ago had nothing to do really with the middle school, although they thought it would be a good place to put the sign and cause some stir, but it really actually had to do with something that happened outside. So most of the situations are happening outside. The kids are coming forward, which is the good thing. They're learning what's going on, and they're actually wanting to bring it to our attention. And so I do applaud our student body, because they are stepping up and they are calling each other out on it. And that's the piece that's tough, but it actually, educating them is working. And then we continue to work as a group, as a partnership between the parents and the school. That's going to continue to get better as time goes on. So I do applaud our students.
Well, I applaud each of you as our parents, because I've got to tell you, we are working together in partnership. And absolutely, those things are happening here at school, but we're also here learning and helping to know how to best arm our children so that they know what to do in these kinds of situations. It is a partnership. And none of us are born automatically knowing what to do. When our kids are growing up, they're learning and they're developing in a world somewhat different from the world that we grew up and learned in. When I was growing up, the only place that you had a communicator on your hip was at Star Trek. I mean, no one else was able to do that. That was the only place you could see that. Our phones were attached to the wall with a cord. Our kids not only have their communicator on their hip, or in their locker, if they're following the rules. And, but they also have cameras attached to them. And so the technology that's available for our kids is very different than anything we ever experienced. And I believe that it is our partnership together to help teach them the tools on how to use that technology in a very positive and healthy way. And that is why we're here tonight. Some examples that I just wanted to share. I know Mr. Raft shared his example from today, but one of our 6th graders, Christmas time, gets a brand new cell phone, really happy to have it, knows it's supposed to be in his locker, but just can't help but show his friends when we came back to school in January. Young man, nice kid, nice family, but he likes this girl in his class. Very normal part of developing, and while they're doing group work with all the kids at their tables, the teacher's helping another group, and he notices the girl that he really likes a lot is kind of bent over the table working on her assignment, and he just takes a real quick pick of her bottom. We all stop for a moment. So what happens? Here's where our education is working. So he shows his friends. Friends wait until they feel safe, and they come to me, and they seek me out and say, I need to talk with you. My friend has an inappropriate picture on his phone, and I'm worried about it. 6th grader, somewhat innocent, not appropriate, and the students, because of the education that you as parents are doing, we as a school are doing, working together, he knew it was important that I tell someone, and he did, and we addressed that issue. The young man is great, apologized, and we move forward. Another situation, 8th grade situation, having to do with the gaming consoles. Students are going online and they're trusting some people that they're meeting because they help me. He helps me with my farm. I'm away at work and he sends me all the tools I need, and then I can have my milking farm or whatever on Facebook. And that builds trust. They reach out and they do these things, and they're spending these hours online on Xbox or Facebook or any one of those sites, and they're building trust with total strangers. Trust that sometimes they really need to be building with us, the trusted adults in their lives. So one of those situations, it turned out that we were able, friends came forward and shared with us the story of this relationship that was developing online through a gaming system. And we were able to reach out and step in and to help this young lady. Another situation, 6th grader. We, together in partnership with the families at school, have email accounts. And we have a filter on that email account to flag us and notify us if anything inappropriate takes place. So a young lady, a 6th grader, tries to fill out a Match.com fake profile. So she writes up her profile and sends it out. She's going to become Hot Lady 721, and she's looking to meet men, and not realizing at all the risk she was putting herself in by reaching out to strangers. Our filter flags it, notifies us immediately. I touch base with the young lady, I contact her parents, sit down, have a conversation. Here are some of the risks that you put yourself in. And this is why it's so important that we have that communication and that dialogue. And like I said, thus far, we're having a lot of really good conversations with families, really good partnerships. Our kids are learning, they're coming forward. And I think that's really what it's all about. We, as a school, working in partnership with you as parents, to help give our kids those tools for healthy use of their technology. So we'll keep educating, we'll keep learning, we'll keep growing together. And I'm going to turn things back over to Heather because I think we're going to learn about some of the laws that take place.
Thank you, Michelle and David. The stories are real. If you heard Mrs. Chuckleheads talk about this, 6th grade was a real common theme in it. We did give the group in the end, this little panelist group, a little parting gift. And, you know, there's no secret, funding's a little tight these days. So we had to use our creativity to put a package together for them. And one of the items in there is a yo-yo. And it's to remind us that as our students are growing up, they're gonna yo-yo. They're gonna make some good decisions and they're gonna make some bad decisions. And that yo-yo was to remind our panelists of, hey, when we need you, we're gonna put a call out to you. You know, you pull that yo-yo out, you come over and you help us, and let's educate the kids again and the families together. So again, those digital footprints can be Googled. They can have successes in their life. So on the opposite side of education and where we stand as a community, we have the trio of law enforcement over there, and we have the laws broken out for you so you can see them. You can see what the law means and what the penalties associated are for them. And then we also have some new laws that are coming down the pipeline. So I'll turn it over to Don.
I'm Detective Don Lupi with the Saline Police Department. I've been a cop now for 18 years. I've been a detective in Saline for 10. Been with Saline 15 though. And what I want to say first of all is I want to thank everybody that's here and everybody that's watching this later on video. It's very important for all the parents to be involved with their children. The parents that aren't involved, a lot of times that's the common denominator of the children that we deal with. And at that point, sometimes it's too late. And that's when they're in the criminal justice system. We like to see it stopped early. I always remember something that my oldest child's doctor said to her, or said to us as parents. He said, "You're not only friends for your children, but you have a job to do. You have a job to be a parent." And that's what is hard sometimes, us as parents. We want to be a friend with our child, we want to hang out with our child, we want to text with our child, but you also have to be a parent, and that's your job. Part of that job may include invading your child's privacy, and it doesn't feel comfortable doing that, but if that's what it's going to take for you to stop your child from getting to this point, you may have to do that. I know some parents tell me that they have a computer only in the living room, and that's the only computer that can be used in the house by their children. That's up to you as a parent to decide. Other parents tell me that they have all their children's email address passwords and their cell phone password, and at any time they're allowed to pick up their child's cell phone and look at it, or get on their email account. I won't give you an opinion either way, but I will say that if you feel something's going wrong, or if you see behavior that's not normal, you better consider doing that, because invading your child's privacy right now may be a lot better than seeing them on a registry for 25 years. Then you didn't do your job as a parent. So that being said, I'm going to talk about the first law here, child sexually abusive material. This law is what most of us are calling sexting now. That is this law. And what this law is child porn. It's the same. Child porn is sexting, is this law. This law pertains to everybody under the age of 18. 17 and under, that's pretty much anywhere in high school and below. Any child would pertain to this law. The second part of it is any video, image, photograph, picture, etc. I just broke it down into a few things there, but the law is 3 pages long, and it describes just about anything. A picture of anyone 17 or younger is considered child porn. Now, the penalties producing child porn, it's called a 20-year felony. 20-year felony means you can go to prison for 20 years for producing child pornography. Does anyone go to jail for prison for 20 years for it? Not necessarily. If the most important part is that if your son or daughter is 16 years old and takes a picture of themselves, they've actually produced child pornography. Now, when they send that to their best friend or to their boyfriend, they've distributed child pornography, which is a 7-year felony. So just the mere act of taking a picture of yourself and sending it, you've committed two major felonies. And of course, as was described earlier, the footprint is there forever. Not only is it on your phone, it's on someone else's phone. And it's very easy to get. The last part to that is the possession portion. It's a 4-year felony. And just the mere fact of having possession of it, you're guilty of a 4-year felony. If you have it on your cell phone, if you have it on your home computer, if you have child pornography, it's a 4-year felony. And back to when I say 4 and 7 and 20 years, you're not going to go to prison for that long. But an example is, in one of our latest cases, the gentleman's probably going to get probation. There's nothing on his record. He's probably going to receive probation for a major offense. And we've had probably 5 or 6 of them this year, believe it or not. But he's also going on the sex offender registry for 25 years. So anytime he tries to get a job, when he tries to go to college, anywhere he lives, he's tracked for 25 years. Invade your child's privacy if you have to, because otherwise for 25 years their privacy is going to be invaded. It's not a good thing. The second law that I want to talk about is what's called fraudulent access to computers. This law is fairly new. I think it's 6 or 8 years old, maybe 10. What this law is basically is if you commit any crime using a computer, you're getting additional charges. And a computer, what a lot of people don't realize is your cell phone, is Xbox Live, Facebook. Anytime you're on any program, computer in any way, and a cell phone's the biggest one, and you do anything, any type of crime, you get additional penalties added to the crime that you're committing. So, back to the sexting picture, someone takes a picture of themselves and sends it to their friend. They've actually committed 4 felonies within about a 30-second time frame. So, it's very important to remember, before you push that button, to think about what you're doing. And us as parents, it's our job to be parents. And if you have to invade their privacy, sorry, but you may be doing them a favor later in life. I've pretty much covered everything I was going to talk about, and I could talk about a lot more, but we have 2 other officers here that are going to take over now.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, everybody. And thanks to the Saline schools and all the staff and administration for this initiative tonight. This is so critically important for us. And I just need to take a little caveat for all of those who are Pittsfield Township residents. On behalf of all of the Pittsfield Township public safety personnel, thank you so much for your support for our public safety millage. This is a part of our initiatives with our outreach through Neighborhood Watch, our programs with our schools, all of the outreach that we have been involved with addressing this issue. We've had some pretty high-profile cases that we've had to address in Pittsfield Township over the last couple of years. But even more so now that we have these laws that are in place and what we're seeing with our young people across the board. I think it's really important for us as we look at the way these laws that are written, and I'm not going to bore your patience with reading all of the details because there's a lot of information that's in the phrasing of these laws when it talks about stalking and email harassment, but it's clearly linked to the communication devices and what we're seeing with the young people who are distributing information, forwarding it on, passing it on to other people, information that's being shared that is erroneous. A majority of our incidents that we're seeing with assaults and fights in our schools are happening at the bus stops. They're happening before they even get to school because of what someone said about someone in one of their social network sites. This has been a very interesting phenomenon across the country, but here in the state of Michigan, and this is why I applaud our schools, because we have a 3-tiered process that we're addressing. From how do we go about helping to educate our community? That is from our meetings tonight. We also have our neighborhood watch groups, and we also have the students themselves. And all of us who are here tonight who are presenting in schools, it's really interesting that we have to be really creative with how do we go about sharing the impact when we're meeting with your students. In our neighborhood watch meetings, we talk about these laws. We talk about the impact. I happen to serve for the Crime Prevention Association of Michigan as the legislative liaison. So we have been sharing with community members across the state these concerns, but one of the things that stood out When this court ruling occurred, March 6, 2010, court awards bullied student $800,000 here in the state of Michigan. Hudson School District had an incident where a young man was repeatedly harassed, brought it to the attention of the school personnel and to everybody, and parents were very involved, and they were concerned that things weren't getting done. They took it to court and they won, and the school appealed. But what came about from that is additional legislation. And it's about the reporting process. How do you go about making sure if something comes forward, what do you do? How is it managed? And who's going to do what with it? Because when we talk about penalties, as you can see what this emphasis is with those who are penalized for being involved with stalking and email harassment, we also talk about what's happening with the internet and the use of computers to communicate, the penalties that go along with up to a 20-year felony. But what are we doing with these new laws? This is what's happening as we speak. I talked to a number of our elected officials recently about these bills that are being introduced. And the emphasis really is talking about creating cyberbullying public service announcement. There are hundreds of them already. But clearly they want to make sure that we do something in relation to what's happening here in the state of Michigan. And that is to help educate our students about cyberbullying. The Stop, Think, Connect campaign is a really great example. And we've done one of those PSAs that we've submitted through my music and our television efforts to help reach all of our students in a variety of categories. The other part of this is the mandate for our schools and law enforcement and cyberbullying reporting. To report it. It has to be reported. So if it comes to the schools, if it comes to law enforcement, the documentation occurs. And that's what's so critically important about not only the bills themselves, but how do you address them? How do you make sure that there is a sequence of events so that this case, which was settled in a federal court, that there is a sequence of events with all the reporting process. This next bill will authorize criminal penalties for cyberbullying, making it very realistic for those who are involved. One of those classic cases, this just occurred earlier this year in the state of Florida. And this is the first time that I've seen this. Middle school students, 4 students arrested for death threats on Facebook. Now, what was really interesting about this case, not only did they print and publish the pictures of the middle school students, I also have a copy that I got from the front page of the entire police report that was redacted to take their names out. But everything that they put in that Facebook account, making those threats, was published. Just recently at one of the schools when I was doing a presentation with the students, I showed them not only the police report in the PowerPoint, but the news report clips so they could see the reaction of the community. They could see how does this happen? What's going on with it? What's going on not only within the school, but in the community? So when we talk about these laws in a global perspective, one of the things that we have to do as presenters, be creative with how do we reach our children? How do we reach our teenagers? One of the presentations that I created for our elementary school students, the Christmas story. The entire 2 major scenes in the Christmas story is of being bullied. So we talked with the students, I sat on the floor with them, to talk about what did he just do there? When he stuck his tongue on the pole, and then Ralphie got hit and assaulted in the parking lot. And then we talked about consequences. What should have happened? What happens to those who stand around and watch, or those who pass it on? But the high school students' reaction to seeing the video clips of the young people who were arrested and the comments from the parents in the community was really earth-shaking. It was really interesting to see their comments, but also their concerns. Could that happen to me? And we talked about the consequences of having these pictures and things on cell phones. And I had a number of students actually come up at the end of the presentation and said, I don't want my cell phone, what should I do with it? Well, you should go back and tell your parents. But if you've got something on there that you should not forward, you should absolutely make sure you tell your parents about it and delete it. If you get something that's forwarded to you based on what you just heard, do not pass it on. All of these are very important as a part of the big picture with the process of all of the things that we have been sharing from law enforcement as it relates to these laws. We have a weekly crime summary that we produce now from the agency. And 3 to 5 incidents a week that I'm now logging in as a part of major crimes is harassing communications. That's the internet, that's cell phone, both adults and children. Those are part of major crimes because of the way the laws that are written. Thank you.
Kevin, did you want to add anything? Come on up. Why don't you introduce yourself too?
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Kevin Parviz. I'm a detective with Washington County Sheriff's Department. I'm in charge of the computer forensics lab. My other job is I also teach at Eastern Michigan University computer forensics. And I'm so glad to see you guys hanging around and listening to us, because my students actually have to sit there, and I really appreciate when I have an audience that willingly is sitting there and wants to listen. I congratulate you for being here, because I'm sure Don and we both can attest to the fact that our victims are the ones that are not here. Cyber crimes is a preventable thing. It's like locking your doors and locking the doors to your car. You know, if you practice that long enough, you're gonna lock them up. And can somebody still break into your car? Absolutely. But the people that we deal with, they don't want to go through the trouble of actually picking up a brick. You know, that's too much work. So they will go the easier route to a car that has an unlocked door. Sheriff Clayton, my boss, was supposed to be here. However, he had a prior engagement, and he looked for the best man, but he died, so they sent me. One thing before I go on, I've got a couple more minutes to talk to you about a couple items. Don Lupai is my esteemed colleague. I've been a cop for 13 years, and I know for a fact that everybody looks up to him. He's a combination of Colombo, you remember Colombo? And Hellfire missile. When he turns around, when he's quiet, and you know, when he turns around to ask you a question, that's when you gotta watch out. I have been in trenches with him. We've had stalking, pedophiles, all kinds of identity theft, you name it. Wonderful detective, just incredible. You guys are lucky to have him in your jurisdiction. As far as my job is concerned, like I said, it's very easy to become a victim of cyber crimes. And I can assure you that now that you're attending here, just the mere fact that you are here, we're raising that suspicion level for you to start thinking that maybe internet is more like a Alice in the Wonderland. It's not really everything you see is what's really there. As soon as you get that, you get that sixth sense to start smelling the fish in the air. This morning I give you an example. This morning I had received a call from an older gentleman. Right off the bat, he told me he doesn't know anything about computers. He wants to buy 2 Sea-Doos from Craigslist. And he's like, look, I found you a fraud. So now keep in mind, 99% of the postings on Craigslist is fraud. You got one guy that wants to sell a Macintosh laptop and 200 crackheads that want to post something and take your money. So you have to actually look for the guy that really genuinely wants to sell his stuff. So this gentleman was telling me in detail how he looked up in the pictures that this bad guy had on Craigslist, that the angle showed that in the background there's a palm tree, but this guy says he's in Pennsylvania and stuff like that. So he convinced me. But at the beginning of what he said, right off the bat he said, he sent an email to this guy And the guy responded back by saying, thank you very much for showing interest, blah, blah, blah. That's an automated email that these guys send. There's nobody there typing this. It's automated email the guy is sending to you. And there's always a link at the bottom. It says, meet me here. And you click on it. It's either a virus, a Trojan or something, or you're redirected to enter your information yourself. The guy didn't have the technology, the know-how to plant a virus on your computer, so he's asking you to kindly give him your information. This was the second kind. The guy didn't know. So the elderly gentleman clicked on that link, and he's like, you know, I stopped there. It was just too fishy. So I explained to him that when he clicked on that link, he's leaving Craigslist. And up there, and I explained to him what a URL was because he didn't know about that. And I said, just look up there, and I have some tools to track it down, find out where it's coming from. The guy is in Korea. And so he was like, but the pictures are here, they're all in English and stuff. I was like, you need to attend one of these classes that we go around. You know, and as simple as that example is, I've had a lot of highly educated people that fell for this. Back in 2003, I know it was around before that, but my very first Nigerian spam victim, remember the Nigerian? That's so ancient now. You know, these guys have so much time on their hand to come up with new stuff. But the Nigerian spam, I had a lady whose parents migrated from Netherlands. She was very white, okay? She received this, that she had a cousin who died in Nigeria, and she fell for it. Little by little, she was out. By the time she contacted the police, she was talking to me, she was out $5,500, which is still a lot of money for nothing. And she never got her $1 million. So, you know, the thing is that she was highly educated, and I'm telling her, okay, do you even have a cousin in Nigeria? And she was like, no, but you know, the way they grab your attention, that's the art of this whole thing. You know, I'm sitting at home, I got an email from a lady with the first name only, Amy, that the subject was, I love you. You know, I'm like, okay, well, you know, I'm a nice guy, you know. If I had any friends, you could ask them. You know, I'm like, I want to know what this Amy has to say about me. You know, and then your hand goes up there and I'm like, wait a minute. No. You know, so things of that nature. That's because this guy sat in prison probably for a long time, for a couple of years, and said, you know what, when I come out, I'm going to send a phishing email. I'm going to call myself Amy. The subject is going to be, I love you. Because he has all the time in the world. We don't, you know, and we spontaneously react to these things. So I'm very glad that you're here. Just the mere fact that you are here, it's very important. I am here to also, if you haven't heard of it, the Commissioner Kristen Judge started a program called Washington County Cyber Citizenship Coalition, WC4. We have been, the Washington County Sheriff's Department has been members since its commencement, and it's getting bigger and bigger. We have applied for federal grants. We're going to have several groups. We have already, the attendance became so big that now we're cut up in different divisions. We have law enforcement in different groups, and within our law enforcement group, we have judges, prosecutors, the head of the defense public defender is one of our members, and we basically gather together and come up with any missing, for example, any statutes missing from our Michigan compliant law, how to counteract, things of that nature. We have different groups that come up with different things. There's a link on the PowerPoint that you're going to be receiving, and please pay attention to that. It's very informative, and it's local, and sure you'll find it very illuminating. And I know I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to pass this over again. Thank you.
I didn't know we had a comedian amongst the panelists tonight. You outdid us all. What Kevin was referring to is up on the screen. You should take a look at it. This is a countywide effort. Washtenaw is trying to be the first cyber-secure county in the United States. San Diego is a cyber-secure city. We're going to take it up a notch. And in fact, this is how we received all of our panelists tonight. Through our relationships the last plus year, sitting in many, many meetings and doing strategy. And in fact, as we move forward, that's how our Stop, Think, and Connect campaign that we're trying to go countywide for the fall. So as we move on, we're wrapping it up and we're getting ready to take some questions to the audience. Maybe I can get a few microphones out there in case anybody has any questions. There are some resources. In your packet today, you have some phone numbers to call. You have some Saline area schools phone numbers. You have our two presenters, Washtenaw Area Council for Children. You have some police agency numbers, and then a few tip sheets and other information to get you along your way. As a district, we have your students fill out that acceptable use policy. We have put through Common Sense Media, which is a resource we use, some home use policies for you, and they break out from the elementary, middle, and high school level. So you might take those out. It might be a nice place to start with your children and see if you can wrangle them back in and understand what they're up to. Tonight we wanted to end with any kinds of questions you may have. I know we gave you a lot of information. We said we'd post it back up, but we are anxious to listen to what you have to say and see if our panelists can answer any of the questions.
Well, good evening. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. I used that word perhaps inappropriately, because I've got 3 kids, one in each of the schools, and I'm scared. But I think there's one thing interesting about what you're saying. You're saying it's out there forever, it's out there forever, but your name's on the sex registry for 25 years. If it's out there forever. That websites like the Wayback Machine, where you can retrieve cached websites, this will follow them for the rest of their lives till they die. I mean, it won't go away in 25 years, and I think you might want to remember that, because that, kids will think, well, 25 years, okay, big deal, but it's till they die.
That is true, Mr. Manette. It is there. I don't know if you're aware, there's a website you can go to, it's the Wayback Machine, and it just keeps track of all of the activity that's on the internet. So if you've ever gone to a website and it says this link is no longer valid, there's an error, you can figure out where it came from through this Wayback Machine, and you really can see things that go back to the beginning of the internet.
I know I took off to get kids from soccer. Did you address like gambling online? Because that's an issue that, especially the poker and everything, I've been hearing a lot of stories about it.
We did not, and that is a good thing to add to future presentations. Does anybody on the panel want to talk to that for a minute?
There are parental controls that could be set, particularly with Wi-Fi, and a lot of those we've been talking about lately regarding identity theft and fraud. But when you set your parental controls, you can block websites, you can block certain addresses if you do not want that on your computer. And these are the things, particularly with any sites that say you must be a certain age to do that, you can make sure that that's blocked from your wireless or any type of internet service that you have. They have the parental controls with Comcast, Verizon, all of those. But one of the things we've really been stressing, all of those, please, who has wireless internet in your home? And everyone who can access. One of the most prominent questions that I receive, how do I control what's happening on my wireless system? Lynx is one of the ones with WPA2, which is the highest security encryption code available. With that program, there are several out there between, I think it's Blinken, but Lynx is the one because they always ask, what do you have? And with my 16-year-old, we were very clear very early on that with the telephone restrictions and the parental controls there, once I put wireless in, I would also have the same type of controls in place. And with that, you can block all of those sites that you don't want. You can literally go in and every time it comes up, it will block it as well as send you a report.
Well, in the gambling situation, what is legal and what isn't? Because the kids have a tendency to say, well, this I would consider myself gambling. But the kids tend to look at it like poker. Oh, no, I'm just doing it for fun. And I'm a little confused on exactly some of these sites that are legitimately gambling and what is kind of legal.
Right, and it's at that fine line. Majority of them have an 18 or over rule that you must be, particularly if it's credit card related, if they're literally playing the game for money. There are a number of Michigan laws as well as by state which games are legal. So if they go beyond those boundaries and find them, that's when you can also get to set those blocks up. But it's important, if it's anything credit card related, you can monitor, track it. It can give you who's in it, what passwords they're using, when you set those parental controls. There are tons of software that's out there. I know that the Area Council for Children has multiple lists. We've been distributing lists, and many of them out there that have parental controls that give you information about where people are on the internet.
Hi, I just wanted to also say thank you for the wonderful information tonight. My question goes back to the example that Principal Raft mentioned about the sixth grader showing him the phone with, it's the sexting. Would that situation fall under the required reporting guidelines that you talked about for cyber safety and bullying?
We talked about that in the last week a couple times. As of right now, not yet, but the bills are in the process right now. And at some point, it'll be like child abuses, and it is that there's mandatory reporters. If the school hears about an incident, then they would be bound by law to report it. But as of right now, they're not.
But that situation would fall under that law.
Absolutely. Correct.
Although here at Saline Middle School, we always turn them to the police anyways because we need to keep them busy. So Don always gets our calls and he loves that. Later conversations. Any other questions?
I know the children have been seeing videos during their.
Sorry.
I know the kids have been seeing various videos about sexting and other situations during their classroom announcements. At the middle school, I don't know about the high school, but are you holding assemblies? Have you held assemblies? And when you do, can there be some way that parents are informed what the kids are being told?
Okay. Yeah, first of all, you can watch all the videos on Hornet Tube, or you get onto our website that says morning announcements, you can watch it. This exact presentation you just saw was shown to all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders prior to Christmas break. And we even questioned a little bit, is this too young for the 6th? It's not. We very well know that it wasn't too young for the 6th graders. And these two ladies did an outstanding job. Heather set it up. These ladies came in, did the same presentation, and then we continue to hammer it home. It's like telling kids not, and I hate to say it, but we tell kids not to smoke, and they still smoke. So there's still kids that are going to test the boundaries with some of this, and that's some of the things we're still trying to keep and continue to educate. But like I said, the number's getting smaller, and I think what we're doing here, we're going to continue to hit it home. We're starting off in the fall with another one here. Continue to hit home with it, and hopefully we get as many as we can. I'm not familiar with the high school. I'm sure that they hit it a little bit, but if anyone wants to address the high school, Heather?
They come to the classrooms. They actually are brought into the business tech classrooms. I met a couple of weeks ago with the principal, Ben Williams, and his assistant principals, and we decided we would make it a 9th grade requirement. So instead of hitting the technology classes where it would normally occur, we are now making it a requirement for every 9th grader to go through a cyber safety training course next school year.
How do you catch the kids that are beyond 9th grade? Or not taking the technology?
We're working on some mentoring programs coming up. We're going to start them here in the middle school, and we'll end up at the high school. We're going to grow our program as we go. So we'll look at other pockets and areas. Announcements are one of the key areas. We hit all of our email users in grades 4 through 12. So it'll be a multi-tiered approach that we take to it.
Okay. Sorry, I also spoke to 2 health classes at the high school about a week ago, just as an FYI. So we've spoken to some business tech and to some health classes at the high school.
these kids are really savvy. Every time they text, they delete. I pick up my son's phone anytime and there's no history. Is there a way to get their texts, and do you pay for that ahead of time, or how do you get it?
You can contact your cell phone provider and ask for that information. Sometimes there will be a small fee involved, but they can send you a printout.
And so even if it's deleted, it's still living there somewhere. All right,
Yes.
thank you.
David, I have an interesting situation. I don't know if there's anything beyond talking to my daughter, which I did, that I should do. So yesterday, she and I were sitting down. She has a Facebook account. She's not on there that often. She has 27 friends. But we were going through them, and she has a new one here in the middle school, 7th grade, 469 friends, and the 7th grader lists herself as attending Saline High School. And I talked to my daughter about, that's a lot of friends. What do you think that means? Do you think she really knows all of that? What's this with Saline High School? Just really raising her awareness. But to me, boy, there's red flags all over that. And is there anything you want us as parents to do beyond talking to our own children in that case? I don't know the answer to that at all.
Well, a lot of our, when I say we have weekly comments brought to our attention, a lot of times we'll have parents call us. Like I'll get a parent phone call saying, hey, over the weekend, so-and-so chatted up my daughter, said some really awful things. And the first question I always say is, did you save it? Because or take a picture of it or do something so you know what's on there. And then I turn it over to Matt and Kathy. No, I don't. There are counselors in the back. But sometimes we do get involved, but sometimes we will call, even though it's not our territory, I will, or Michelle will, or Matt or Kathy make contact to a family member and let them know that, hey, they're not in trouble, but I want you to be aware of what's going on. Because I think sometimes we think, one thing I have learned as parents, and I'm a parent, my daughter has 400 some friends too, and I know she doesn't, but we go through the Facebook myself. But one thing I have learned is never say never as parents, because that's the one thing that'll bite you every time, and it could happen to anybody. So we make that aware, and like I said, it's not something they're in trouble with us. Well, I'll call kids in sometimes and just say, hey, I heard about what was happening over the weekend on Facebook. You said this and this, and you can see their head go down. They're thinking they're in trouble immediately. They're not with us, but we do make parents aware of things that come to us, and hopefully the parents are doing something. And if we think it's serious enough, I do contact. One thing I will say about the Facebook thing, in my case, hopefully, knock on wood, every aunt and uncle and everybody is on it. So when her Uncle Don is on, who's the cop, is on line, and he hints to me that something might have been said, right? It helps that your daughters friend you as parents. Say, fine, you'll be a friend? Friend me. No, then you're not having Facebook. So they can't be willing to friend you, that's another important piece. Another question. Okay.
I just had a question about when you're talking about the talking to strangers on a chat room. There are a lot of sites that kids are on that they say, oh, this is kid safe. I mean, Disney has them everywhere that you can create all these people and talk to, create fairies. I mean, little kids are doing it, or whatever. Are they truly safe to do that? And how do we find that information? Because if they are used to doing that in a safe area, how do they know what's not safe?
Well, there are a few websites that you can visit. We do have a resource in your packet. Common Sense Media has a lot of information for parents. There are safe websites, like you said, Disney has websites, and there's others out there that are kid-friendly. But basically, you're going to have to talk to your kids about what is safe to do, what is a safe website, talking to strangers online. They should not talk to strangers. If someone friend them and they don't know them, if they're in a chat room and they don't know this person, just don't talk to them. It's just getting back to the basic, not talking to strangers.
And one other thing, I recently read an article in the New York Times about a woman in California who's a mom, and she was worried about those very same things with her kids going online and going to these safe kid chat rooms. And what she did is she started kind of like a guardian angel type program where she employs moms all over the country who go into these chat rooms where the kids are and kind of monitor what's going on. Now, I can't guarantee that they're in every chat room 24 hours a day, but I know that they are monitoring a lot of those sites. And if you just do a Google search, I just did one recently, safe websites for kids. And there was a mom who had gone through and done some research and found some websites that she said, yeah, I would feel safe having my kids using these social media sites because they are designed specifically for kids.
And I just want to say, if you're worried about where they're going, as we said before, really checking your computer history to see where your kids are going, that's important. And then you'll know what type of websites they're visiting, and you can talk to them about it.
Could you, hold on one second, Don wanted to add one comment.
I was just going to say, a lot of people hear a lot of the talk that a lot of the words we're using, you may not be catching on. Some of us might not be as technologically advanced as others. At any time, just for anybody here or anybody watching the video, if you ever want to come into my office, I'm always available. And Richie's shaking his head yes to Pittsfield Township or the city of Saline. Come on in and talk to me. I'll show you what I know, which is probably not as much as many of the other people here, but I can show you what I know, and I can show you how Facebook works. I can show you how to look at the history in your computer. You know, I can show you what I know. If anybody here wants to come in, I have an open door policy with that, so always welcome.
The information that we heard tonight was incredibly useful to me, and a lot of stuff that I had never imagined or heard of. I think it would be really helpful if twice a year, every quarter, or whatever, you could send out some sort of email that said, hey, here's some of the types of things that we have dealt with in school, so that we know and we can be aware of them, we can talk to our kids. There's just a lot here that we're never gonna know, and I know it's changing constantly. So it would be really helpful for us to have that, and I realize you have to be very conscious. But yet, just like the examples you gave us here tonight, if we can get those kind of examples, that awareness and sensitivity is going to go way up.
If I can just comment real quickly and replying to that, one of the things that I do with our homeowners associations and our neighborhood watch groups, we send out regular information and updates. This year, I've sent more out about Facebook privacy settings than anything else, because so many of the adults, even our seniors, one of our presentations for our Pittsfield seniors, how many of them were on Facebook? About 70, 50 of them were on Facebook, because their family members set it up so they could see the pictures and all of the children's things that's going on. So it's important to have an awareness, again, at every level, but we send that information out in real time as things are going on. This year, with the National Day of Privacy, we did several workshops as well as an interview with one of the business shows. I am amazed at the information that is available about us that's out there. And all of these games, particularly Farmville on Facebook, took to court, $350,000 fine because they were harvesting everybody who played it information from their Facebook account to sell to other people. So our kids now who are being exposed, their information, pictures, everything that they have is being harvested from these various sites because of the data mining. So it's important for parents to have an awareness as well.
And also, I'll just add to that to go to what you're talking about, today we had on top of our school improvement goals that we have for reading, writing, math, we added a school improvement goal for next year, cyber safety. So it actually, we have a committee of teachers that are working together to have something monthly, updates, some of the things we can't share right away, as the situation that we dealt with that was public on the news about a month ago. Detective Lupi and I and Michelle worked on that for almost a month and a half before it could even come out, because there's some privacy things and laws that go on that takes some investigation. So we are working on that, so we appreciate that.
You can see everything is starting to come together for our community. This group right here, the Washington Area Council for Children, they run evening events over internet safety, and they tackle topics. Don's offered up his shop. Pittsfield Township does a lot. Washtenaw County has that website. We are looking as a district to host a couple events a year. So in the fall, look for an event, and in the spring. And this one was about education and awareness, but we do want to drill down and get into some of those topic areas. The stories are powerful, and it really reminds us of all of our obligations and responsibilities to grow. You know, to us, they're learners, to your children to grow up. So you'll be seeing a lot more information coming down the pipeline.
I just wondered, those crimes, the laws, and if children are caught as minors, are they charged as minors with breaking those laws, or are they charged as adults?
If the child is 16 and below, they're charged as a minor. When you turn 17 years old, you're charged as an adult.
So would they end up as a minor being on the sex registry for 25 years?
Yes, minors do go on the
Okay,
registry.
I just wanted to clarify that. I also wanted to just make a comment. My daughter's in the 7th grade in the middle school, and I try really hard to make sure that her footprint online, that she's really not even Googleable. I don't even want that to come up. She's not allowed to post pictures of herself on Facebook. She could post, and I went through all the privacy settings so she can't be tagged in photos, things like that. But then in school, they asked them to create blogs with photos of themselves and attach their full names. And I was like, okay, wait, you can post a poem that you wrote from school, but it seemed hypocritical to me for the school to then be asking for her. So now her name attached to her photo is now Googleable. And I just thought, no. And I approached her teacher, and her teacher said it was okay not to do that. But I just wanted to make that comment that it seems sort of...
It's a really good comment. We've usually had the rule that first names only, and you know, if kids have the same first name, it's first name and first initial, a last name, first initial. We are at the end of the summer, when school starts back up, we are going to have all of our teachers go through it's a Moodle class, and it'll be a program that they'll learn about all of these things and what the district expects. So we're going to try to tighten up some of those issues. I fully get what you say tonight.
And it's good that you bring it to our attention, because sometimes we miss some of that, and being aware of it is important too. Was there another question here?
A round of applause for our panel. Thank
Awesome.
you. You did a great job. I also have to mention Mr. Coleman, Harvesting, Farmville, nice one.
Also, a round of applause for our students that are still here. I think it's great that you came out tonight. It shows the responsibility and accountability that you want to take. So let's give our students that are here a round of applause. Well, it wraps up our night. I hope you had a good time. We learned a lot tonight. Let's keep the communication open, and let's work on those digital footprints for everybody. Have a good night.
This has been an SCTN production.